Coming up on Need to Know, while school kids in Rochester are gearing up for summer break, the leader of the Rochester City School District is keeping her sleeves rolled up. For Superintendent Barbadine Williams, much needed change within the city school system doesn't happen with words, but actions. So what does she plan to do exactly? Find out just ahead. Also on the show, it's rare for voters to get a glimpse inside the personal lives of politicians, but that's about to change. A special segment on Need to Know gives viewers a unique look at the person behind the politician. Stay with us. Need to Know starts right now. It was the father of modern physics, Albert Einstein, who said, "In the middle of adversity, there is great opportunity." But when it comes to urban education in America, there's something called an opportunity gap. You've heard that phrase before here on Need to Know. According to the Schott Foundation, that gap refers to a disparity in access to quality schools and resources so all kids can succeed academically. And that's a gap Superintendent Barbadine Williams is trying to help close through a new vision, refined measures, and the experiences and stories of students. The superintendent of the Rochester City School District joined me in the studio recently to share several aspects of her plan. Take a look. So, Barbara, you have lived the life of a suburban superintendent. You led Greece Central Schools for 4 years, and now you're living the life of a city school superintendent. So I am curious, what has been the biggest difference for you from leading Greece Central Schools in comparison to Rochester City Schools now that you're really wrapping up year one in Rochester?
The size is clearly the major difference, although serving families and a community and schools is a very similar kind of role. You need to be very mindful, obviously, of students and their needs and families and really understanding the community and what the goals in the community are. But the size of the district is clearly a challenge.
It's the biggest difference for you.
Yeah.
So you are, as I mentioned, you're wrapping up year one. Mm-hmm. So as you kind of conclude this year and look ahead to the 2017-18 school year, what do you see most importantly for students and teachers? Really, what's your vision moving forward?
Well, this was the year to build a team and to really begin to deeply understand the district, the challenges, as well as the bright spots. So that was really important to me, is to look at the district as a portfolio of schools, right? So we have a number of schools, we have many different classrooms, teachers, programs, and many types of students and learners and families. So it was important for me to understand the diversity of the district and the strengths of the district so that I could work from the strengths. So next year, what we're hoping to do is to use the information that we've gathered this year, and we're going to continue to learn because every day, every week, we learn something new. And what we're trying to do is really incorporate that learning with collecting the voice of students. So the big goal for next year will be to sort of align the instructional vision and plan for the district long-term with the facilities and the schools themselves, but also to start to explore the concept that the community is the classroom, and how can we have our secondary students in particular more actively engaged in service learning and sort of hands-on learning in the community.
So you're really taking this time to assemble this team, get to know the needs, and then moving forward, let's see how do we kind of take what we've learned and align that vision with where the schools are, the facilities are, and the district plan long term.
That's correct.
So in doing that, who do you need, or what groups are you really depending on to make this game plan a reality?
This is going to take the entire community because we know that we have long-term funding challenges. We have challenges with needing to integrate the system really so that we're serving students as one community from birth through graduation and into adulthood. So our goal is really to connect with county and city service providers and ensuring that we're a good partner and that the school system is part of the larger vision for the community and its youth.
I know that for district families, one thing that they've heard before is that phrase, it takes everybody. It takes everybody to help bring about change. And I think that theme is understandable, that it takes a village. But what do you think the district has to own in order to do this work and to really be transparent about it?
That's a really good question, because the part that we own is really what I call the central sort of core of the work. And that's really teaching and learning the quality of our curriculum, making sure that it's relevant, that it's rigorous, that we're very mindful of student voice, student choice, providing opportunities to learn, which is providing adequate supports for all students, but making sure that every child has the opportunity to be in a classroom and in a school that's very high quality and can engage them in great learning.
Well, in terms of curriculum, I know, and something that you've done, you said you've really taken this past year to get a scope of where things stand with the district. And one of those things that you've done includes a recent report that was released this spring. The Democrat and Chronicle covered it recently as well. And this was really, you wanted to find out, you requested this review of how is special education currently working within the district. The school system has not received glowing reviews in the past with special ed. It's something that we've covered on this program before. There were 14 conclusions that were released, and I'll summarize here for the sake of time, but there were 3 points that I wanted to make. One, the referral rate for special education has increased 93% over the past 3 years. 2, the district lacks culturally informed practices to promote equity and access for students of all races and ethnicities. 3, the district doesn't use its data to act upon or change the current ineffective practices in both academics and behavior. That's for the general population and special education students. You were a former special education counselor. Based on that, what were your initial thoughts when you saw this report?
So I think the report reflects reality for us. Those points are absolutely accurate. The reasons for them are varied, but what's important is that the special education services and supports are really designed to ensure that every child has access to high-quality curriculum instruction and achieves at the level that they are best able to achieve at. So we know we have students that are very fragile, students that are vulnerable, students that are going to live in group settings, and those students need to be given high-quality services and supports by highly specialized classrooms. We also know that we have students who have the capacity to be college and career ready, and the purpose for special education is really to allow them to have full access to the general education courses and curriculum. So the quality of special education is very dependent on the quality of the preschool experiences and early education, the ability of the district to identify quickly if a student is not achieving in literacy or mathematics or in another area, or if they have a speech and language issue. It's really important and critical that a school district fund early intervention and pre-referral services. Those are things that were reduced in prior budgets in Rochester. And I think people saw me this year really work in the budget to try to make sure that we were mindful of needing literacy teachers and counselors and social workers to really focus early on intervening before the gap in learning becomes such that it requires extra support and services. Special education is really about curriculum and instruction and ensuring that the child has access to the kinds of classrooms that all of us would want for our own children. Unfortunately, it's also a bureaucratic paperwork issue in a district this large. Sometimes those kinds of systems, if they're not well designed and they're not digitized, can become a barrier to focusing on the right work, which is teaching and learning.
So for those, you talked about early intervention, but let's look at for those students who are in secondary school. We're talking, middle and high school students that are within the special ed program or have been classified. Based on the information that you've seen in this report, how then can you ensure, what are you looking at? Who are you reaching out to? What's happening moving forward to make sure that that high quality learning is in fact being delivered, and the bureaucratic work, paperwork that you mentioned as well, that's being dealt with too.
So that's actually a focus for us, is secondary education. So, you know, applying early intervention strategies is a long-term approach, but I'm not that patient. So we've also really focused on adding what we're calling Twilight Academies to all of our secondary schools. That's an additional opportunity for students to accelerate their learning and be able to catch up on credits and learning that they have missed or where there are gaps. We're also going to focus very heavily on career and technical education. We believe that students need an opportunity to apply learning, to provide hands-on learning, and I think the report also identifies that as an opportunity. Providing the proper opportunity and support for secondary students to catch up is critical. The chances of a child dropping out are very high if they don't attain 5 or 6 credits by the end of freshman year. So we have focused very heavily this year on credit accrual and ensuring that students that have a failure at marking period 1 are given immediate support so that we can prevent those gaps moving forward.
Well, one of the things that was addressed in this report, as I mentioned within the conclusions, was equity, issues with equity. And this was something that I recently discussed with a sociologist and distinguished professor of education, Pedro Nogueira at UCLA. He joined East High Superintendent Sean Nelms on the program. And we looked at equity and also the opportunity gap in education. And I want to take a look, and I've got a clip for you to see, and this is what Pedro in particular had to say.
Great.
We've been focused as a nation on the achievement gap for many years now. And those are the very pronounced and predictable disparities in achievement that tend to correspond to race and class. What we haven't focused on are the opportunity gaps that also correspond to the achievement gaps. And when you think about it, it's almost obvious. That is that the same kids that are underperforming academically have basic needs that aren't being met. They don't have adequate health care, they don't have adequate nutrition, but on top of that, they often go to schools that are under-resourced. They don't have access to lab equipment, they don't have access to the courses they need, or in some cases, even teachers who are qualified to teach those courses. If you don't close those opportunity gaps, there's no way you're going to see a reduction in the disparities in outcomes. And so what we've been trying to draw attention to is that doing more work on the opportunity disparities will help us in the long run to create schools that are more equitable and that produce better outcomes for all kinds of kids.
So, Barbara, the first thing he mentioned is as a nation, we've been so focused on this academic achievement gap and not so much asking about the opportunity gap. And I want to ask you first, when you hear what he had to say in terms of equity in those gaps, what is your response?
100% in alignment and agreement. Pedro, actually, I have worked with in the past. When he was at Steinhardt, we worked with him. Steinhardt is currently working with Rochester City Schools. So he's absolutely correct. And the community schools model that Rochester is employing right now to integrate those social services, medical services, and nutritional services is one way to ensure the opportunity. The other way is to ensure that we are very mindful of making certain that we have high-quality courses. We have almost tripled the number of advanced placement courses next year, and just want to make sure that our students are gaining access to those high-quality classrooms, programs, labs, career and technical education programs. All of that requires some funding and some capacity to sustain those opportunities in an urban setting. And so I would say he is accurate that we need to be mindful of that as well. But it's multifaceted. So while we can have those additional resources and we can have those additional opportunities, you still have to have a system with staff and leaders and community advocates who are really focused on ensuring that those opportunities are available to each and every child, regardless of race, gender, or language status.
And speaking of one of the greatest disparities in our city school district, it's something we focus on, again, on Need to Know, is the state of Black and Latino male students in the city school system. What are your priorities in regards to the opportunity gap, in particular for minority minority male students in the city school system?
Well, of course, we're very actively engaged in the My Brother's Keeper initiative in alignment with both the federal and the state work in that area. There are specific standards that apply to schools and classrooms around serving males of color, black males. Those standards are utilized as we're planning programs and services and supports. We have a number of grants, and we have a number of staff members in schools that are directly involved in ensuring that we improve opportunities and we improve outcomes for all students.
Well, one thing I know that you've done is a focus for you has been improving relationships, mindsets, and building trust. And this is really with every level within the district. So we're talking teachers, administrators, students, and also the community at large. And I wanted to ask you, what does building trust and improving these relationships, what does that look like for you? And I ask you this because these focus areas, they make a lot of sense. But I want to know, how do you actually make it happen when history may have created a bit of skepticism with some of the parties involved?
So one of the things that I know, there's a book called The Speed of Trust. You have to get to work. You have to actually walk into a system and begin to do the work, to build coherence, to build relationships, but to get focused on making things happen. Once you demonstrate that you have a capacity and a willingness to dig in, make a difference, try something, we're not going to be able to undo years and decades in a year or two. But what I hope to do is build the capacity within the system to be a good partner to this city and to all of our community partners, our county partners. There's a lot of support here in Rochester for students and families, but we have to build relationships and coherence so that we're working together. Yesterday, I was with a number of county partners and city partners, and everyone is working on very high-quality initiatives, but they're not always aligned in a way to get the kind of collective impact that we need to see and that our youth deserve. So I'm very focused not only on the ground level in terms of developing those relationships and sort of digging in, but also on a systems level of trying to find the path forward. I think that's the best thing we can do right now, is just get to work and make a difference.
When you say the systems level, by that you mean?
Integrating systems, making sure that we understand that when we talk about attendance, we have focused a lot on early education and making sure students develop good attendance patterns. But we also in our district have secondary students that don't attend school, and we have secondary students that don't attend classes because they're in the discipline system. And we have kids that don't come to school, but we're not doing the level of home visit or integration. We should not be relying on the court system. We should not be relying on those kinds of systems that we have to put in place once we haven't done the right work of prevention. When a student is missing from school for the second and third day, we need to be picking up the phone, making a call, or getting in the car and going and finding out what we need to do specifically for that child. This is very personal work, and it has to occur one student at a time, one family at a time, one school at a time. But if everybody collectively focuses on doing the right work for kids, then I believe that as a community we can pull together and really see something significant. I think we have some partners that have been underutilized. We're looking to include faith-based partners. We have a number of people within the district, especially those that have led the attendance initiative for the last several years. Very, very dedicated and committed partners throughout the system, throughout the school district, and throughout the city. Can't say enough about what they've done, but I also am really excited about the kinds of things they're talking about to put in place next year that will strengthen and expand upon that work and draw more people into the table.
Well, I want to tell you, Barbara, one thing that we do on this program is we have a series. It's called Top of the Class. And so what this is really an opportunity to introduce our community to young people, not only making a difference in their school setting, but also making a difference in Monroe County as a whole. And it's really, these are the types of stories that I think sometimes we don't hear enough about in news, showing progress that's being made. And that being said, I would imagine there are also highlights within the district that we don't hear about as often in the news, simply because we're covering other district matters. So that being said, what is an area of progress, and maybe it's about expanding upon what you just mentioned, some of the things that these partners are looking forward to doing next year, but something that has gone under the radar when it comes to local news that you would like to discuss?
I think that the work that's being done with the relationship building model, some of the work on culturally relevant and significant curriculum, and the use of student voice. I have met some incredible students and some incredible parents who are very actively engaged in making a difference. And they come from situations that, quite frankly, they faced a lot of adversity, and they had to overcome that adversity. And what's really amazing to me is their willingness to talk about their experience and to share the experience with others and to help us learn from it, because it's through that story of individual children and individual families that we collectively begin to understand the powerful impact that public schools have. Classrooms, teachers, administrators, ask almost anyone about a story about their school days, and it comes back with power, and they're not always positive. And my goal would be to make sure that every child's story in Rochester is a positive story.
You know, would some of these stories that you hear, would any of what you hear also help to guide you in the planning that's taking place on the curriculum level, school level, district level?
Absolutely. So one of the things that's important to me when I meet with students, we have really tried to focus on getting into schools on a regular basis, 2 to 3 days a week, and talking to teachers and talking to leaders, but also talking to students, from the very youngest students to those that are in high school. We also have engaged students in staff training and staff development. We have leadership training and teacher training coming this summer. There will be students and parents and community residents at those trainings, because it's important for me that we all communicate and dialogue and learn together so that we're creating one cohesive system.
Well, Superintendent of the Rochester City School District, Barbara Dean Williams, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
And we look forward to having you back soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
For continuing coverage of the Rochester City School District and some of the work being done in districts throughout Monroe County, be sure to stay tuned to WXXI News on air and online. That's where you can also find state and national reports on education. Be sure to check out our website, WXXInews.org. For Barack Obama, it's playing basketball and pool. For Congresswoman Frederica Wilson, it's collecting hats. For George W. Bush, it's painting. These are some of the hobbies of political leaders in our nation that give us just a little insight into the person behind the politician. But what about our local political figures? It can be rare to get a behind-the-scenes look of their lives until now. A special segment on Need to Know this summer will take you inside the lives of candidates in the race for Rochester mayor. The focus, getting to know them through one of their favorite pastimes. First up, Democrat Rachel Barnhart.
Welcome back.
From television reports to town hall forums.
We can't afford to say we can't.
Democrat Rachel Barnhart has fully transitioned from investigating and interviewing political candidates to becoming one.
Thanks everyone for being here today.
But saying goodbye to a career in journalism in 2016 and running for public office doesn't mean everything in her life has changed.
I read the news a lot. Go figure, I'm a former journalist. When I read, it's usually the news. Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post. I catch up on what's going on. I really still want to be informed.
The candidate for mayor also maintains a regular presence on social media. And she's still often spotted in her Beechwood neighborhood walking this showstopper, her 136-pound Neapolitan Mastiff named Pixie.
Come on, Pixie.
And when it comes to Barnhart's favorite pastimes, well, that hasn't changed either.
It's my time, that's alone time. No one can call me. I can't call anyone else.
The mayoral candidate is an avid swimmer. 3 to 4 days a week, she swims 2,500 yards at the downtown YMCA on East Main Street.
I will say that when I swim, I've often solved problems. I've written speeches in my head. I've written stories in my head. But it's my time. It can be very meditative. So much is going on in the world that it's hard to turn it off, especially when we have our smartphones, and I'm definitely glued to my smartphone. It can be hard to turn it off. Well, you can't bring your phone with you in the water.
As a child, Barnhart learned how to swim at her neighborhood Y in Maplewood. At the age of 7, she joined the Maplewood Y swim team and began to swim competitively. But today, she says swimming is about competing against herself and staying healthy. And speaking of self-competition, in just a few weeks, the candidate for mayor will set out for a summer ritual.
I swim across Irondequoit Bay at least once. I have a friend with a boat, and her father, he follows us while we swim across the bay and back. It's about a mile total, and it's hard because you've got the wind and the waves. Open water swimming is not necessarily what I'm good at, but it's a great experience.
Whether at the Y or crossing the Irondequoit Bay, Barnhart says swimming allows her to relax, focus, and at times put life into perspective, one lap at a time.
All of the candidates in the race for Rochester mayor have been invited to participate in this special segment. Those taking us up on the offer to remove their political hat and share more of a personal side of their lives are doing so this summer. You can see these special segments only here on Need to Know, leading up to the primary election in September. And that wraps up this edition of Need to Know, Rochester's news magazine. I'm your host, Helene Bienduty-Hofer. Thank you for joining me on WXXI TV and online at WXXInews.org. And a special thank you to those watching who continue to support public broadcasting. Have a great night.